I didn't know that you sang the jingles for Barbie.
Yeah, I did for about 10 years, and that was
Wow.
really, like, before I was in the touring world, and we had to lip sync. Right, I'm not sharing a trade secret I'm not supposed to be sharing, but I think one of the musicians, they switched music instruments because they're like, "We're not playing this anyways."
Do you have like some hacks or different ways to look at a lobby to make it feel clean, modern, just very welcoming?
I wanted it to be a place that moms felt like they could rest from.
Well, Katie Crist, thank you so much for being on here. I always love having conversations with you and getting a chance to hear your perspective and just all that you bring to the industry.
Oh, thank you, David. I'm happy to be here today.
So, you founded the Music Box, which is a thriving music school in Lafayette, Louisiana. You built the Music Box from a one teacher studio into a full scale multi teacher academy known for its exceptional design, culture, and systems. And then you sold it a few not weeks ago, a few years ago. But now, like, you haven't left the industry. You're still coaching. You're consulting. You coach. You're one of the coaches in the BAM squad. And I've just always admired your attention to beauty inside a music school and your design. You have a great mind for design, but you also have like the ability to really, like, you've really created, and you did create some amazing systems in your school. And so I kind of want to talk a little bit about that today for those that maybe feel like they could use some help in that particular area. If you but first, thinking back, like, the first few years of your music school, like when you first started it out, did you ever see yourself building something that could eventually sell and continue on without you? Like, it's still going and thriving today. Like, did that ever even enter your mind?
Not at all. And I think that that's one of the craziest experiences as an entrepreneur is, you know, not knowing that something was going to develop from a passion, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, to answer that simply, no, I did not imagine that when I started.
And isn't that one of the fun things about the entrepreneurial journey? Like, sometimes we just don't, or oftentimes we don't dream big enough. Like, as we're going down the road, we realize, oh, we can do that. And oh, we can do that. Here we are. And before you know it, you're like so far beyond what you ever thought was even possible. And I totally see that in your journey. Like, what you built was just absolutely incredible. I still don't think I've ever seen a school quite like what you built, and like I said, it's continuing on today. So for you, like, there's so much, there has to be so much pride in that, and just knowing that that was something that you did and you built and it's continuing on. So when you think about design, what does that mean in terms of like the business context? Like, how do you
Yeah.
separate those two? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think I get asked this question so often. And to me, it was second nature really to build this kind of elevated, special, luxurious experience. And I think going back to my pursuits in the music industry and my early years as an aspiring singer, I think I always saw music performance and like music pursuit as this glamorous pursuit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And when I got to Louisiana, obviously born and raised in Los Angeles, and it's really started my music experience, like working in popular and commercial music. But when I got to Louisiana, I just was kind of seeing that there was a missing experience of that culture of the glamour that the music industry is in Los Angeles. And it just felt like something that was missing here.
So you like, because you did, and I didn't even mention that earlier. Like, you came from like the professional commercial music world, and so
Hmm.
you saw all of that. Like, what, when people get excited about music, when kids get excited about music, a lot of times that's sort of what they're envisioning. right?
Yes. Yes. And I'll say, like, one of the most formative experiences that I had was when I started doing the commercial jingles for Barbie through Mattel. Um,
Wow.
I'll never forget, like, that was probably maybe my third exposure to a recording studio was in Santa Monica. The studio was called Ear to Ear. Brian Banks was the writer and producer on this project, and he's amazing. Look him up; he's incredible. But I
Wow.
had this audition to do this little Barbie commercial spot, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to get this. And they like loved my voice and booked me right away. And I walk into this space. There's a roaring fireplace that the fireplace is probably my height. These huge, like velvet chairs, a kitchen that is like stocked with like the beautiful, like any snack you could want. You open the fridge and it looks like a refrigerator from MTV Cribs, you know? And I'm in the lobby and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I cannot believe I'm in this space. And they're like, Katie, come on back. We're going to start in the red room today. I'm like, the red room? What? And you walk in and it's like a glass enclosed booth and the big, I mean, in the first session I think I ever did, he was in London on a big TV screen in the session being patched through. And I was like, I've made it. This is so glamorous. And so that was like my really early exposure and experience. I was like 19 years old when I did
Wow.
that. And so it really created this, I don't know if fantasy is the right word, but this like, well, this is what it's like to be a musician and a successful musician. And it really like paved this path forward for me that, I just associated music with this elegance and glamour and fancy, you know, all the good stuff.
Yeah, well, kind of the thing, all the things that we think about, right? Like when we're
Yeah.
envisioning what it must be like to be like a star, in
Yeah.
Hollywood or something.
Yeah.
All of that sort of is manifested right in front of you. That's
Mhm.
amazing. I didn't know that you did. You probably told me that over the years, but I didn't know that you sang the jingles for Barbie.
Yeah, I did for about 10 years, and that was
Wow.
really, like, before I was in the touring world, and the touring world appears to be glamorous, but it's not, but it still felt glamorous because it's just
Mm.
the venues and, the experience of that.
Yeah, it really is amazing. I often forget you had this whole career before you even got into the music school world. But it's really an interesting point because I think like to your point, like it seems like it really shaped your whole approach to the
Mhm.
industry. A lot of music school owners, they get into the industry as teachers, right? Not
Yeah,
necessarily touring and performing and all of that. Um, and so they're, like when you think of a teacher or a teaching studio or something like that, that's kind of not quite as glamorous, right?
mhm.
Um, and so I think as an extension, sometimes their schools don't have that same glamour that yours does or and did. So when you came out to the Southeast and you built this beautiful music school, what's an example of like a design decision that you made that made a tangible difference in your school's success?
Yeah, I mean, I remember, like, we all start out as this, like, solo teacher, not all of us, but a majority of us do. It's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay, I'll teach." So, I moved to Louisiana, is my husband's from, and I get this opportunity to teach a little group of young women that were preparing for a talent expo that happened to sing. So, I start in a tiny glass boxed room in a funky old building downtown as a little side business of this talent agency. Just was like where I dipped my toes in. And the first year it was like, just growing from those 6 students to the full group of students. And at the end of the year performance, I had a dad pull me aside and say, like, I don't know if you realize what you're building here, but I think you need to look into a new space. And I'm going to help you find one. So I find my first space. That's when the music box was actually founded. And the first thing that I did is I like invested in the flooring in the space, and people were kind of like, "Wow, like you're spending $3,000 on flooring and you only have like 30 students." And I was like, "Well, yeah, I want it to be beautiful when people walk in here."
Hmm.
And that's kind of when I created the different rooms. Like I had a red room at my studio. I had a blue room at my studio, and I think it was kind of a parallel to like each room had its own little special glamorous, and it was like IKEA furniture, Walmart rugs. I mean, it was like nothing fancy, but I put the attention in creating an experience in each separate lesson room. Even though I didn't have any other teachers there to work in those rooms at the time.
Wow.
I even put fresh flowers in the lobby on, the week that tuition was due. I was playing live concert DVDs. This is how long ago this was, on a big screen television to inspire the students when they were waiting for their lesson to start. So it was like I wanted them to walk in there and be like, "Wow, this is special, and I want to come back here every week."
Wow, that's interesting. I love the flowers on the week of tuition.
Oh yeah,
That's great.
I know. Isn't that interesting? I don't know what my mindset was around it, but I was like, I just wanted to appreciate my people to feel appreciated. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, and I
for
think
them to think about you.
it's like those little touches, and I think that's so the flooring, that's interesting.
Uh huh.
So you felt like you wanted to invest, because that was one question I was gonna say is like, where did you invest? Like
Hmm.
if somebody had to choose something to invest in, and let's say they already have a school and they're just, it's like, what should I invest in to
Huh.
make my school, to like to focus on beauty or to focus on the experience or something like that first, right? Because obviously you can't do
Yeah.
everything, right?
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I don't think because I wasn't planning for this to become what it became at that stage. It was
Yeah.
just like, well, let me try this now. Like this year's been interesting with the 6 to 35 private lesson students. And at the time, I was a marketing director for a doctor who was the dad that pulled me aside and was like, wink, wink, you got something really amazing going on here, even though you work for me and I'm going to help you. So when I got into that next location, I wanted to attract um, teachers that would appreciate like the big city experience, I think. And I think that's where my mindset was, is I'm like, well, I started in this little box that was like not well run. The talent agency was not well run, but people didn't mind it. But I'm like, well, I'm in control of this next location and I want to elevate the experience and I want to attract the right people, the students, the, potential new hires. And I started with the flooring. It's just so interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
I can so that's a hard question. Like that at that stage, that was the focus, was to make that space look polished with like based on what I found that I could afford. The space was the perfect layout, but it needed a little improvement on the space. And that was really like the only thing that I could afford. And it made a massive difference in the space. We put laminate flooring all throughout, had these weird yellow walls, but like it was okay.
Well, and like you said, you had different colors, like the rooms themselves
The
had a
furniture
different.
inside of the rooms were different. So,
Okay.
yeah, so I had this fun, like, turquoise desk and this cool mirror, and I was like, "I've arrived." This, like, fur rug. I mean, they're tacky. If you look back at a zebra chair room. At the time, I thought this was, like, the coolest place ever.
Well, and your family's obviously responded
Yeah,
positively, right?
yeah,
Because it's just not normal. Like it's not, you don't, you go into most music settings or music teacher settings, music lesson settings, and that isn't usually the case.
yeah,
Like there isn't sort of that splash of experience and atmosphere.
yeah, true.
So so the flooring was a really important part for you. Like you felt like that was really important for people, to walk in. That was your big investment
Yeah,
in that
the,
new
like, the first
space.
location, yeah,
So as time went on, I'm assuming you just sort of added touches and different things. What
mhm.
were some other priorities as, the school started to grow and you started to have a little bit more budget to put behind the design?
Yeah. So the first thing was the weighted keyboards. It was like I had one in my little lesson room. And then my first hire was a guitar teacher. So we didn't need an instrument for that classroom. He just would bring his and the student would bring theirs. And then pretty quickly after that, I hired my first piano teacher. And then we bought like a second digital piano. And so each room had furniture, like a desk, a chair, and a student seat. And then slowly getting instruments kind of building in there. And then I think where we started to kind of get the performance experience to match the lesson experience, like I put together a really polished concert series. And we were in the most inexpensive theater in town to start. We did that for a couple of years. And then I can't remember if it was I think after we moved into our second location is when I started to really elevate everything because we had the growth to support that. The growth in the room to grow to support that.
Yeah, yeah, and you really did create some amazing performance, like, recitals. But you didn't call them recitals, right? Were they called
Mm-mm.
concerts, or what did you
Mhm.
call them? Okay,
Concert. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But you had, like, like, the red carpet and just
Uh-huh.
all that stuff, right?
Again,
Having
it's like I took a really bold move, and I think I was probably the first youth organization in my community to take advantage of we have this beautiful, it's called the Acadiana Center for the Arts. It's a two-story glass walled building. I love glass. It's so glamorous and modern. And it has a 300 seat theater in it with a massive grand piano. And typically we have these like touring acts and like mid-level performing arts organizations run through here. They don't typically have local youth organizations renting it. Well, now they do. But I was like, no, we're going to do the concert here. And it's how much to rent? Oh, we're going to figure it out. We did sponsorships to pay for that with parents. Like, I want your kid to have a better experience. Who has $500 to contribute to this? I'll put you on the red carpet, on the step and
Wow.
repeat.
Tell me about that. So, how did
Yeah.
the sponsorships work?
So I think when you're really small and you're still teaching, like the belief in your business from your personal students is just massive. I'm sure you've experienced
Yeah,
that too.
yeah.
And these parents, I don't know what it is, maybe the area that I live in and where I'm from, but I just remember like almost it's like it was so fulfilling because like I could just watch them melt um in the lesson. I'd bring them in at the end of the lesson and I would share like this is what like I'm thinking of my student Megan right now. Like her mom Elise was like so generous in the early stages and I was like, come listen to what Megan's working on for the last like 5 or 7 minutes of the lesson because it was just this small operation and the mom would just like melt watching her child perform and grow in confidence. And so then I was like, well, I want that melt to happen at the concert. So like, Elise, what do you think about this concert? She goes, I'll head the committee. I think that's a great idea. Katie, give me everyone's email address and how much do we need to raise? And she handled that for the first couple of shows at this big venue and raised the money for us to be able to rent it. And like we weren't charging tickets at the time. It was just kind of, you know, I had some little God winks in my climb, I have to say.
Wow,
Just these
wow.
wonderful people that just saw potential and jumped in to help. So,
I I think the performances, recitals, concerts, showcase, whatever we call them, but I think those are such important
mhm,
elements to the overall experience of a music student. I mean, even for, like, I remember when I was a kid, I mean, I took music lessons like pretty
mhm.
much everybody else, and like that was for me, that was the highlight, right? It was like looking forward, preparing for all of that. Um, performance opportunity experience. So, and I just think it's cool. You basically took that idea and you just elevated it. And
Mhm.
instead of looking at the cost, like, oh, we can never afford that, it's like the better question to ask is, how do we get to a position to where we can be in this space, and what is it
Absolutely.
going to take? And
Mhm,
leveraging all these families that they're super excited and they want to do it. One of the things that I've seen, and we never did this in our school, um, but I've heard a lot of schools like sending their students to Carnegie Hall, or
mm.
in LA, is it the Disney Hall or whatever? But it just
Well, this
sending
yeah,
going to these destination halls, so like these
performances,
definitions,
yeah.
yeah, with this just same kind of concept, just like raising the bar and saying, hey, we're recognizing that this is such an important element of the music lesson experience. We're gonna give you this exclusive opportunity. And I love that you did that there locally, and you just built into it.
Yeah,
But
and it's so funny, all these memories are flooding in because it really was just this, like, organic, beautiful thing, but I had an interesting element outside of the concerts is we also did albums as a business,
mm,
where the kids got an annual, experience in the recording studio, and that for me was a huge thing too because part of being in the music industry is recording. I mean, like, we performed on Jessica Simpson's, press tour on Dancing with the Stars, and we had to lip sync. She was the only one that could sing live because there were dancers performing and the cadence of the song had to be right. I'm not, sharing a trade secret I'm not supposed to be sharing, but we we pre-recorded as a band and she performed live.
Wow. Oh,
And
that's
so, like, that
interesting.
was part of, like, just like the Barbie commercials, that is part of being a working musician is learning the skill of recording. So, we also did that, and that acted as a fundraiser at a certain stage to help pay for the concerts, like sell the CDs and, you know, all of those things, but just
That's so cool.
interesting. Yeah.
So is that the way it is at most like live concerts where
No,
no.
not at all. That was the only one we didn't perform live on, and we were all cracking up because I think one of the musicians, I might be recalling this incorrectly, but they switched music instruments because they're like, "We're not playing this anyways."
Oh,
But
wow. Just
it's
because
just
of the
about
look because they
no.
wanted a different look or
Yeah.
something?
Well, part of it is, like, the dancers performed live to I think we did Angels, and the dancers performed have been rehearsing to it. And so, like, we couldn't vary to what they had been rehearsing to, as the dancers were choreographed in perfect time. So, like, Jessica could vary, but, like, the rest of it needed to be, like, predictable for their performance. Maybe because it's television, I don't know, but we had to record our parts.
So, yeah, and this idea of recording really is a big deal. And like when you first started, did you just do voice lessons or did you
Mhm.
do okay,
We
so it was just voice lessons. So, yeah, recording would be a huge deal, right?
Yeah,
Like learning how to do that.
correct, yeah.
And so you guys did albums and the whole experience.
Yes. Albums and concerts. Yep. A little
That's
bit of
so
glamour
cool.
everywhere you
So,
turn.
one more design I want to stay on design for one more question. So like most schools feel a little cluttered, or maybe they're trying to cram everything into one space, especially in the lobby.
Mhm,
Um, do you have like some simple little hacks or tricks, or just different ways to look at a lobby, for example,
mhm, mhm,
to make it feel kind of like you said that clean, modern, just very welcoming experience, and when especially moms, because moms is that is the customer, right?
yeah, yeah,
So how do you have any suggestions or tips for like just for somebody who's maybe like, I have no idea, my mind doesn't work this way?
yeah.
What would you say?
So I wanted when we got to our 3rd location, which was really like my dream come true. That was like a out of my brain brought to life. I wanted it to be a place that moms felt like they could rest for a moment while their child was being nurtured. And in order for that to be a peaceful environment, it needed to be streamlined. Like from the lo-fi music that we play in the lobby, that was on purpose, to the candle burning in the lobby, that was on purpose, to the color selections being like monochromatic and simple, that was a choice. Television monitors so they could peek up if they wanted to without having to be in the lesson room. All of those things were to create an experience for the paying client just as much as the lesson rooms created an experience for the student.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so color really does make a difference, and I totally
Mhm,
agree. I think that, yeah. So, so like what you just described is visual. So like the flowers and the color, and then
mhm,
the sense, right? So
mhm.
like the candle and
Music.
um,
Yep.
and then yeah, yeah. So
Mhm,
you're sort of capturing all those senses. That's interesting.
mhm,
So, okay, so let's transition over to systems, because this is another thing that you are really good at, and you created some really cool systems in your school. I've heard you say in the past that systems create freedom, and I totally agree with that. And it's very difficult to have any type of sanity especially if you're trying to scale your school, if you don't have some type of systems.
mhm.
What would you say if you were to boil it down, I guess? What are a few of the systems that you felt like changed the trajectory for you at the music box it started to give you some of that freedom, what were some of those key decisions that you made in terms of systems
Yeah.
that you'd
Okay.
point to?
Yeah. So I think we're really lucky that we have so many software solutions in this business model. And it is so niche that the software systems are really
Yeah.
developed to make your life easier. And I do have to say, when we moved from, we started out not having the resources to know what software solution was best for scheduling and billing and event management. And when I made the switch to Opus One, that like changed the game for us. But that was a
Mm,
later decision. But if I were starting again, I would I would have started with the right software for handling our scheduling, our billing, and our event management. And then I would also invest time in learning and activating a communication software. And I know, I think Opus Plus exists now, but that was in beta before I sold. And we used another system that allowed us to have, all of our email and text communication go to this software solution. And it also had a pipeline system in it for our sales process. And on top of that, we could send out communication workflows to lists like by customer type. So either a current customer, a former customer, a prospective customer. And we could really cater that communication to, get people to take action on, sales or event registrations, or just, hey, notifying you that the weather is bad and we're going to close for the day.
yeah.
So software, um, catered specifically for our industry, I would get on that right away and just start with it. So it's really hard to go from like a spreadsheet to a software migration. Or what we had to do is we went from it was called Zen Planner, and it was a fitness scheduling solution because I didn't know any better. And we had to migrate all of our lists, all of our financial data into a better system. And that was a real hard um, change at an important stage in our growth.
Yeah. Well, and I think, yeah, I think a lot. I love this point because you're right. Like thinking back, even just 10 years ago,
Mhm.
there really wasn't hard. I mean, there were software solutions for music schools, but it was so primitive
Mhm.
compared to what it is now. Like,
Yeah.
you had to have like two or three solutions really to get, just to get by. And it's always difficult when you're sort of patchworking together, your software.
Yes.
That's why the all-in-ones really there's such an appeal to that because it's one login. It's it's just one experience.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I love that you say that. What would you say though? So outside of software, okay,
Mhm.
so there's the software piece, there's the communications piece,
Mhm.
which really occupies a lot of the customer experience as well as like your training and all that. But like, well, okay, let's talk about training. So, what were some things that you did? Because you bring in a new person. Obviously, you're not the one necessarily typing the customer data in, and
Mhm.
when you're at a point where you've scaled a little bit and you've got a team, what would you say were some of your systems for your like your staff
Oh,
and
yeah.
your training and all of that? What would you
Yeah.
point to like some of the key things that you put in place?
Yeah. That man, it feels so easy now because it's in place. But I remember
Yeah.
when I first got the courage to hire somebody at the front desk. I mean, that takes courage. Like you're passing
Hmm.
off control to someone else. And I think that was the key for me. Is like I'm passing the control of my growth to this person. And what do they need to perform these tasks identically to me? And so that is really the thought process that I had when I was generating each layer of each system of each task. So the first thing that I delegated at the very beginning was I need someone else to answer the phone while I'm in the lessons. First thing. So it was like, okay, let's just see what happens. And then you can leave me all the notes of the call. And then I was like, okay, wait, do you think you can handle a schedule change while I'm in a lesson so I don't have to do it tomorrow morning? So then I would outline that process. and it all just built into this like master. We called it the music boxes operations manual, and they were separated by like front desk coordinator. She had her layer of tasks, or they had their layer of tasks. There was a couple of them, and then we delegate down from me to the general manager. Like, what else can I delegate, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about um, performing the task as you would without you having to do it, and how to communicate that where the team member doesn't need to come to you and ask over and over again. I forgot what that step was. We'll outline it. Go back to the manual and look it up. And if something's missing in that manual that's putting them on a block on that task, then that outline needs to be perfected. And then just
Y-
one task at a time. That's how I built my manual and systems, I should say.
And you got to the point to where you were able to sell
Hmm.
your school. But for somebody, like, let's say they're just in it and it's all them and they haven't, like I said, necessarily hired somebody to replace them with all those things. What would you say if you were to put, like, what are the top two or three things you need to do to be able to be ready
Hmm.
to sell your music school?
Yeah.
You've already hit a couple really big ones, like training your manager and having your software, and
Yeah.
maybe that would be it. But would you add anything to that list?
Yeah. I think there's a term called transferability, in a
Mm,
business transaction where imagine your business without you in it. Can it continue? And so you have to transfer, and that's just to kind of keep that key in your brain. Transfer all day-to-day activities to staff. When I sold my business, the only things that I was managing at that time were like the high level recruitment for teachers, marketing activities, and event enhancement. That was it. I wasn't answering the phone. I wasn't handling schedules. I wasn't substituting when a teacher was out sick. I wasn't unlocking the front door. I wasn't closing up. I wasn't washing a toilet, nothing. Like everything else was handled by hired team members or contracted labor. Um, and it was all drafted so that when the new hire came in, it was like we had a training resource. It wasn't like, well, how does this person go from hired to performing like my front desk coordinator when she's on her way out? It's like it takes about 3 weeks. The learning curve is steep, but you're going to get it. And this is our roadmap to success for your role. So
you know,
transferability is huge.
I love that transferability.
Hmm.
Um, I think that when employees feel like there is ambiguity to their job, it's insecure to them.
Hmm.
But when they go, and this is one of the things I so much admire about you, is when they go in and there's a detailed job description. I think and I've talked to owners about this in the past where it's like, well, that might be like micromanaging or like I'm trying to control everything. It's like, no, that actually brings them security when they know exactly what you expect of them. Like
Yeah.
every detailed from the moment they walk in the door to the moment they lock up and they're
Yeah.
done. They know what's expected. They have a checklist. They have all these things. And so I think that's so important, don't you?
Same. And I'll have to say, like over the years of leading employees, some are self-starters and some are not. And
Yeah.
those that are not self-starters are not going to be able to, outline a system. They want to be told like how can I be successful in my shift today? They want to know like what those key performance indicators are, right? They want to know that when you come into the office, especially the culture that I created, that Katie's not going to come in here and see that the poofs in the lobby need to be fluffed. That's a joke. It's an ongoing joke. I still go in there and I fluff the poofs. I'm like, y'all, the little round, we have these little beanbag chairs. And they
I
just
love
laugh. I'm
that.
like, I can't help myself. But like they want to know, like before Katie gets in at opening, like she's expecting a first impression to be happening here at some point today, a walk-in, a trial lesson, whatever. And that every layer of every process, like I don't want you to not know what to do. I want you to feel confident in your job. So
What made you realize it was time to sell? And then how did you prepare for it?
yeah. So I get asked that question a lot too, because we were kind of only year 2 in our new location. For me, we had maxed out that private lesson bookability and we hadn't grown. We moved in, we maxed out the private lesson booking, and we hadn't grown in a year and didn't have anywhere to grow. And I was like, okay, I think this is it. Because for 10 years, we were acquiring a new lesson room, hiring a new teacher. And then in our second location, we kind of maxed out and ended up taking over office spaces to continue to grow. And in that last location, I only had one additional room and we bought the building. So it was like, well, we're not going anywhere. Like, this is our forever home. And I felt that I had done my work in creating this asset for our community. Like, I really was like, I can't contribute anymore to make this any more beautiful or more successful, and I would like to move on.
Hmm. And so you pretty much had like you really reached a point to where, and I've told you this before, but you really reached a very like a point to where that's very rare.
Mhm,
You know, you were very profitable also for the size you were.
mhm,
Um, you had like an amazing model. You were able to raise prices to the point
mhm.
to where it's like, you know, a lot of people be like, well, no, I can't charge that much. None of my competitors are charging that much. I mean, there's so many things that you defied, and that's one of the things I love about your story is like you marched to the beat of your own drum, and you got to that point where it's like, okay, we're ready to, you know, and so that makes your school very attractive to a buyer because it's like you're sort of the purple unicorn in your area, you know, you're operating um, at such a high level, and so when you look back, tell us a little bit about the experience of preparing to sell, right? So, like, you
Mhm.
did all this stuff, you were profitable, you had all the systems in place, that was great. But then when you go to sell, it is a different experience, right?
It
It's like
is.
there's things that you don't really think about that
Oh,
buyers
yeah.
are looking for, right? What were some of those things?
Yeah. So, like, I that was one of the fastest, steepest learning curves of my career was learning
Wow.
to sell and max out. Like, I was like, my husband was like, "You what? You're gonna sell it?" And he goes, "Well, what do you want to get for it?" And I told him, and he goes, "Well, go get it, baby." And I did.
I love it. I love it.
So we're kind of I was like a long process, and my buyer will tell you the same. I was kind of like a little bit of a hard, long process because we were growing from inquiry to I think it was about a 9-month process. We were growing month after month after month, which was increasing my EBITDA, which increases, your multiple. And in the process I was like studying and learning, and the book that Johnny at Build a Music School, he coached me through my sale. He's amazing.
Yeah.
But he recommended the Exitpreneur's Playbook, and that book is about reverse engineering your financials to prepare for sale. And this is an interesting topic. Please get an accountant's hands on, your process. I also hired a valuation analysis, or I paid for a valuation analysis by an analyst to make sure that I knew exactly what I was getting into. And that was a big investment, but it was an add back on the bottom line.
Mm,
But when we're preparing to sell, there are so many add backs and things that like you may reduce off of your bottom line for a tax benefit, but you're trying to do the opposite, when you're preparing to sell, because all of those like, oh, that's an add back. That's not an expense that's going to be transferred to my buyer. That makes a huge difference on your bottom line. And I think we found in the tens of thousands of dollars of add backs
wow.
while we were growing. So it's like our offer started here. And by the time that 9 months passed, it got to the goal that I had. And I was like, let's do this. But it was hard. I mean, because we were operating at the same time. And then you're like, okay, I want to make sure that this baby stays where it needs to stay while I'm about to pass it on. Because it's a scary thing to say like, okay, like you take it, good luck, something that
Yeah.
dedicated for me, it was a decade of my life to building.
Well, yeah. I mean, and just and not just the time, but also the like the blood, sweat, and tears. You know, the risk, the all the sleepless nights, and everything. So, on that note, like emotionally,
Hmm.
what was that like for you? I know, like, I have my experience, and we've talked about this of selling, but like when you were going through it, just kind of emotionally preparing to let it go, and then once the the sale was over, like in terms of, well, actually, I think there's a combination. There's a combination of emotional and
Mhm.
leadership.
Mm.
There's I think I feel like there was a change in both of those areas because on one day I had me personally, I had 60 employees that were looking to me.
Mm.
And then the very next day, all of those 60 employees were looking to somebody else.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a leadership shift that happened. I had
Mhm.
zero employees, you know, and that was the first time in years. And
Mm.
so for you, what was that like for you? Just kind of that whole transition emotionally,
Yeah.
but as well as your leadership.
And nobody prepares you for this. Like, it's it's a bittersweet transaction because, like, for me personally, I knew that my impact and my contribution to the music box was done. Like, I was ready for a new challenge. I was ready to be home with my young children more, um, ready to be challenged again by something totally different. But it is like it's a weird thing as an entrepreneur and a small business owner, like your role in contributing into your employees' lives is fulfilling. And
Yeah.
I didn't anticipate that shift. That was not on my like pros and cons. It was so interesting. I think I just was so like focused on the prize and just knowing like this is really exciting for them and this is going to be a good transition for them. But it's like a shift. And then you kind of get some time to decide, like, what do I want to do now? And that's a beautiful thing. Like, when I announced the sale, like to my social media, like to share to the community or my community, like I announced it as my first entrepreneurial exit. Like, people don't understand what it means to successfully sell your business when you are at the top of your operation of your business.
S-
General public does not understand it. They're like, "I'm so sorry." I'm like, "Why? No, don't be sorry. This is awesome." So that was an
yeah.
interesting thing too, emotionally to like.
It's so rare. It's so
Mhm.
rare to exit at the top like that.
Mhm.
Um, so, but now you're on the other side of it,
Yeah.
and you're coaching school owners that are obviously still in it.
Yes.
How has your perspective changed now? Like the way you're coaching and you're consulting music school owners, how
Yes.
like yeah, how has that shifted for you?
I am so much more decisive,
Mm,
and I think I always kind of share with our clients like I don't have the emotional attachment on this decision that you have, and I see it really clearly. This is what you need to do. And I know it doesn't feel like that's what you need to do, but like there's a decisiveness around like because you get these you say the emotional change. It's like the people that contribute to your success in your business, your clients, your students. It's like you're constantly like pleasing people and like managing them and all of that. But when you don't have the operation to consider, in your coaching, it's like the decision making is clearer, if that makes sense.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So now when you're talking to school owners and you're working with them, do you see some common challenges or issues that sort of come up often
Oh, yeah.
that you notice? And what would you say
Yeah.
those are?
I think a lot of people really struggle with delegating. Like, how do I, like we talked about transferability, like, how do I make sure that this person I hire does it better than I do, or at least as good as I do it?
Yeah.
Right. Like, people just, that concept is really scary. Um, I see a lot of that. I
What would
see
you
a
say to
lot.
that? How do you coach that?
Um, I just say you have to get disciplined and outline the process, and you have to like invest in training them, and you have to invest in carrying them through after the training. Like, once you've let them free, you have to be present and check in with them on a weekly basis on their work and celebrate them and learn their language of appreciation and show that. Because once you delegate that, like now you have a new role in your business. You're not just a music teacher, you're now a leader and a music teacher, and like balancing your investment into these people that are part of your business and your success.
Yeah, I like that. It's kind of like the E-Myth. Michael Gerber talks about
Mhm.
being the technician and the manager and then the
Oh,
owner. And when you
yeah.
first start out, you're wearing all three hats. But then
Yes.
as you go along the business, you take off the technician hat, or we'll call it the teacher hat. Now you just have the manager hat and the owner hat.
Mhm.
And I think one of the hardest things most people get stuck in is they don't know how to remove the manager hat,
Mhm.
and just wear the one hat, which is the owner hat.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the game. That's one of the hardest things to do, which is
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about.
And I think in that same tone, it's like the confidence to know that you're making decisions on behalf of the business, not on behalf of your personal well-being, because it feels like I coached a client today that kept saying like, "Well, I do this to help to be generous to the student or to the teacher." And I'm like, "You need to change it to like the music box does this to be generous to the teacher." Like
Mm,
you are the entity. Stop personalizing it. Like that's another like area that I find a lot of our growing leaders are challenged with. Is
yeah,
it feels so personal. Every decision feels personal. Like this policy, like someone's going to be mad about it. But like your business needs that policy to grow and to improve. So do it.
yeah, yeah. And that's that very direct decisiveness that you're talking
Yes.
about. It's like,
Yes.
this is what is needed, so just do it.
Yeah.
Because there isn't necessarily the emotional attachment, once you've sold, or like, so you've basically gone, and you and I are similar in this way, and it's very rare. It's like there are some people that have sold schools, but they bought their school, right?
Mhm.
But starting it from scratch, building it, growing it, then selling it, I feel like that's pretty rare.
Mhm.
That's a thing. And so there's an emotional attachment to that. Like, this
Mm.
is literally the baby that you started and grew, and which I think is part of the reason why it's so emotional to sell too.
Yeah,
And
it
give
is.
the reins over to somebody else that's now basically continuing it on. But
Mhm.
um, if you could go back and start over
Mhm.
and talk to that younger version of yourself who's got all the ambition and the dreams, and is building and growing this thing, what would you do differently? What would you coach that younger version of yourself to do differently?
Such a good question. I think I would have sought um, a peer group quicker had I known about one. I truly like I have to say, Build a Music School transformed the way that I grew my business and just
Yeah.
having a peer group. They're the ones who directed me to, hey, there's software specifically for our industry, so you silly goose, try that. And I really found a lot of had I been in that sooner, a lot of the hard, heavy lessons that just felt like kept me up at night would have been breezed over or maybe been avoided. Um, so that definitely would have been one. And I think also the other big thing that I would have told my younger self is to just like have faith. Cause like I did
Mm.
not plan to build the music box. Not there was nothing inside of me that said when I move from California to get married that, I'm gonna stop pursuing popular and commercial music and I'm gonna become a music academy owner. Nothing about it. And every step of the way, doors would open and I just kind of kept walking through them, but a little scared, But I wish I would have been a little bit more faith driven, like just trust the process, Katie, just go for it rather than worrying about it.
I love that.
Hmm.
I can totally resonate with that. I think, and that's part coming back to what we were talking about earlier with the entrepreneurial journey. There's so
Hmm.
many unknowns. Like, you
Yeah.
can't know how this story is going to unfold. It's like you're climbing a mountain and you think the peak is where you're headed, but in
Yeah.
reality is there's like five other peaks that are not
Oh,
only
yeah.
further down that you can't see, but they're taller, they're bigger, they're more beautiful and amazing. And there's no way. So that faith piece is so important. You just have to
Hmm.
believe that if you just keep going and chasing down your passion with all your heart, that there's an
Yeah.
amazing things that are going to happen from it. And you're just
Yeah.
an incredible example of that. So,
Thank you.
Katie, thank you so much for being on here and sharing just these pearls of wisdom with me. And I know so many people listening to this are going to get an encouragement and inspiration from it. So, then thank you also for doing what you're doing in our industry, to continuing to give back
A lot of
and
fun. I'm really
share.
enjoying it. Thank you.